All right. Welcome everybody to the True Crime Talk Show brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast. My name's Brendan.
And I'm Malia.
And welcome to the show. So what do we get it into tonight? Bear with me, you guys. I'm pretty sick. I don't feel very good. But after yesterday, I didn't want to go another day without streaming. So
keep it over there on your side.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sick.
So yeah. Yeah. I have not heard about the volleyball scandal.
Volleyball scandal? No, I haven't heard of it. Can definitely look it up though.
Yeah, it'll probably just be a laid back night, which is what we normally do on Friday nights, but there's some really good stuff to talk about. We've been starting with, there's a few different Idaho 4 topics I want to talk about, and one of them is based off of the poll that we put out. So we put out a poll. Let me see here.
One thing that, I watched, which I think came out a few days ago. I'm trying to remember if it was after the first Kohberger hearing about the jury survey or if it was the second, but I think it might have been the first. Nancy Grace, did you watch her episode about the jury survey?
No.
It's something else, okay?
Is it? I mean, I can expect.
You already know what to expect.
Yeah,
it was 4 days ago.
I can
that it was uploaded to YouTube.
I can already guess what it's going to be like. Now, my big question is why, okay? And one of the things what I'm sitting here trying to think of what the total or I'm sorry, I'm so out of it. I am like not here right now. My head is not working because I'm sick. So I apologize. But so with Nancy Grace, what was the recent conversation we had where we talked about the panel of 6 people? And I don't remember what that topic was though. And it had Chris McDonough on it. It had that expert. I think, I don't remember if she's a psychology expert. I'm pretty sure she does focus on like human behavior, character psychology, and those aspects. But they went really hard on the Bryan Kohberger case then also. And what I mean is like very one-sided and biased, which I'm not against. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, and I'm not going to judge them for it because I believe everyone should be able to have opinion. I just have such a hard time understanding why somebody on live television that focuses on a career and experience in criminal justice being able to be like, no, absolutely, it's over here and it is the worst case scenario. Bam. You know what I mean? Like, I just have such a hard time understanding that.
Yeah, it was a similar situation in this one. Chris McDonough was on the panel. And she just, one thing is, we know, because we watched the Kohberger hearing over here on this channel. So many of you, I'm sure, are very up to date on everything that happened in that hearing. And I'm just not sure Nancy Grace watched it, any of it. Because she doesn't seem to know it was officially stated in that hearing that Bryan Kohberger didn't stalk one of the victims.
Okay, you know what? You know what?
And
I did see a clip
she
of that.
must
I know
have
what you're
not
talking
she
about
must
now.
not have listened to the expert either, talking about
Yes. Okay.
disseminating prejudicial information, including facts, not just untruths, but facts, and how biased the media has been, pushing it in one direction towards his guilt. And that's all she does, but then sits there and blames Ann Taylor. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how anybody could be out here saying Ann Taylor is such a horrible lawyer. She, is purposely trying to taint the jury pool against her own client. But then I don't hear them making the argument of, well, then she's incompetent and she clearly believes Kohberger is guilty, or, you know what I mean, is trying to get a plea deal so she doesn't look terrible. I don't know, just anything. I don't hear any logical argument to go with that narrative.
Yeah.
It's just she's terrible. And at one point she said she would pop Ann Taylor's head off if she could get close to enough to her.
Real quick, we
And
have
it's
so many new viewers. If you want to finish your statement, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought of it. I was just going to give a brief rundown of the case we're talking about because we picked up 20,000 viewers in like 2 weeks. So, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why she goes so hard on Ann Taylor. She clearly has respect for other defense lawyers, but apparently just not Ann Taylor. She has no room in her brain to think even for a second there could be reasonable doubt in the Kohberger case. And even if she doesn't, okay, but why still go out there and spread information that is literally being said to be not true? Just because it makes him look guilty. That's the only reason. It just looks really bad. And I think that is a perfect indicator of why people are so over mainstream media these days, is because so many of these personalities that are on these mainstream media shows do that.
Yeah.
Where they state things intentionally that are false.
Yeah. And
try to push a narrative.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I want to continue down that line of thinking because I think it's really important. Just we have so many international viewers, and I'm under the assumption that you guys have watched us before, but this is the main case that we're covering right now. It is the most popular case worldwide. And I just assumed everyone would know what we're talking about, and I probably shouldn't have done that. But we're talking about the Bryan Kohberger case out of Moscow, Idaho, and the Idaho 4 massacre with the 4 students in Moscow, Idaho, all the way back in November of 2022. And the case is just now ramping up. And I mean, I don't know if I'd say ramping up, but we're trying to get through the pre-trial phase of it. And it just seems like absolute and complete madness. And there's a whole mixture of opinions, and the opinions of what seems like mainstream media, or I would say half of the population, is very one-sided. Bryan Kohberger is guilty. There is a pretty substantial percentage of other people that believe that something weird is going on here. Now, there's a whole bunch of gray area in between. Like, Idaho is ranked the #1 secretive local government state in the U.S. There is no other state that is believed to be more secretive within their local government than Idaho is. There's literally videos talking about the insanity of how secretive they are. They take this position that, we'll get things done if we don't include the public, and we know what's best. And I think that has helped cause a lot of the issues and speculation and questions in this case. And right now it seems like mainstream media, and it's important, we highlight this all the time, any chance we can get. Mainstream media has a buy-in to back politicians. It has a buy-in to back police officers. It has a buy-in to back prosecutors. because then they get special privileges to get news stories first, right? So I agree with you. I think channels like ours are doing so well and growing so quick. It's not like we're one of the only ones. There hundreds of billions of views a month on YouTube, okay? And true crime is one of the biggest genres out right now. And there are a whole multitude of content creators, and people are turning to YouTube to give them their news. I think they're looking for a more biased or unbiased and not owned opinion of cases. They want to know what's going on, you know, and I think especially through the war on drugs in particular, there's been a major separation between the public and law enforcement. And we have a super chat here. I totally forgot about that. But our super sticker, I'm sorry. We appreciate you. All's well. So did you see what the super sticker was?
No.
Can you pull it up? I'm only in the metrics portions of it. But yeah, so we appreciate you for that. Thank you, you guys. And when we have super stickers come in and super chats come in, we will be talking about them, you know, at the end of a rant, story, or break in the conversation. So if it takes a little bit for us to get to it, I apologize, but we will get to it for sure. But yeah, everything I was saying pretty much just plays off of what you were saying there.
It's a black cat.
Awesome.
Cute. Love cats. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So I think
how bad was the Nancy Grace?
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was extremely biased. And you know, with Chris McDonough, like looking into the college and how involved they were with the investigation, and Scott Green, I think that throws up enough red flags, not to mention also how the crime scene was handled and how poorly that was, and how we've unearthed that they lost footage from the gas station.
Yeah. That video is a big deal, man. Because
well, also the crime scene, like we know it wasn't handled correctly.
Yeah.
We know that. Also, on top of it, the university, it's a huge deal. I think I know, by the way, what somebody was asking about the volleyball scandal, because it looks like the interview room has done something on the Vandal, you know, like University of Idaho scandals.
Oh, they're going after
volleyball,
the steroid in college angle.
No.
Is that what they're getting to?
No. So with the volleyball thing, that is where a coach was basically abusing a whole team. He was
like, what type of abuse are we
I don't
talking
remember
about?
all the details of it. If you guys want us to dig into it, we can. But he was very controlling, and they all complained.
So like verbal abuse?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't think it was physical in any way, but he was putting them in situations. But he was also putting them in situations where they could be harmed. He was very controlling, and they all complained numerous times and were scared of him, and they weren't getting any help.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I remember this from a while ago. I read something on it. I watched media reports on it, but it's been so long I can't even remember what all it entails. I just have a very clear picture of one of the girls in my head talking about it on the news, but that's it.
Well,
they've had several scandals. It's a lot, and you know, they're mentioned in Scott Green's book too, because he says like you're only as good as your worst headline, which brings this back to me to that Nancy Grace segment, because what part is it? It got brought up somehow. I think maybe it was something about the University of Idaho, and maybe it was somebody's comment on what she said. But essentially, the University of Idaho cared about this case so much, not because of any other reason than their name was attached to the headlines. What was the first headlines? It was U of I students massacred. 4 U of I students found dead.
Okay. Okay.
That is why they cared about this case. If it was just in town somewhere and they weren't students and it wasn't attached to them at all,
That's interesting.
obviously they wouldn't care. But the fact that all the headlines said 4 U of I students, it attached them to this case permanently. It is the media that made them be attached to this case.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that actually makes a lot of sense. My brain was sitting here clicking as you were talking about that. So that could also include why they turned the memorial into a memorial about all students. So again, they probably aren't connected directly with this massacre, right?
Right.
That sounds like it could very well be a possibility, in my opinion. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we can dig right into it. So one of the issues that I have with the Idaho 4 case that we haven't talked about, which surprising, we have over 100 videos on this case. And usually what we'll do is we'll select a topic and dig into that one single topic at a very micro level. And it's helped us understand some of the investigation. It's brought up some additional questions and everything in between. But the question that was asked here was Idaho 4, why do you believe they never interviewed Bryan Kohberger? So, typo, I think I was already sick at that point. Why do you believe they never interviewed Bryan Kohberger pre-arrest? Is where I was more going for. Now, what's interesting though is I don't know if Moscow PD ever did interview Bryan Kohberger. When I went looking for this, I couldn't find any details on an interview. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people who say that, yes, actually, they brought him in immediately and he lawyered up immediately. And that's why there was no interview. But then there's a lot of statements out there in the true crime community talking about they never tried to, and that if they tried to, then they would actually have an interview because they were able to. The FBI was able to effectively have an interview with Bryan Kohberger. So why would the FBI be able to, but not Moscow PD? I think that's a really big question. Why could that be? I don't think he just lawyered up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the FBI claiming they have an interview. Now, understanding that I haven't heard that FBI interview. So could that be not true? I mean, sure, it could be not true. We have some news sources that have come out and talked about the FBI conducting a phone interview, and they do have that recording, and that phone interview recording was used as an example of like Moscow PD doesn't have a recording of their attempted interview.
So I've wondered this too the whole time. Like, why did they wait until he was leaving town? Like, I mean, from what we know, at least from what they've told us, okay, because I think there's a possibility it was sooner. From what they've told us, November 29th is when they first learned of Bryan Kohberger. And then he left town on December 12th?
Yeah.
So it took them
we have
almost
100% confirming that. I think most people make that connection because of the phone dump records and the car identification though.
Yeah, by a WSU officer.
Right.
Yeah, that's when they found him.
Yeah.
So it's like almost 2 weeks. But they had enough to literally watch him while he was traveling cross country.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So why? Like, why did they wait that long? Why didn't they pull him in and say, hey, where were you this night?
I should have saved what I was looking into
It
earlier.
just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree with
because
you. I don't understand
from what
either.
we know, they did talk to him, but after arrest, not before.
Exactly. And that's my big concern here is, look, if they're claiming that on the 29th, some people argue it's before. I've seen a few people say that it was later, but if they knew of Bryan Kohberger on 11/29, why didn't they take the standard investigative process of a suspect? When police believe they have their suspect, right? Almost always you bring them in and you have a conversation with them, right? And there have been plenty of times where cases have been solved from that very first initial conversation. I mean, we just talked about lightly, we didn't go in depth, a kid who never did anything weird, wrong, troublemaker, anything in his life, and he ended some homeless person's life. And that first interview law enforcement had with him, he spilled his guts, told him everything. So that interview is step one. Why didn't that happen? I don't understand why that didn't happen.
I don't know either.
I have a really hard time. I have a really hard time believing that this was an effective investigation without seeing the standard steps of the investigative process. I don't think there's a law enforcement officer out there that's going to tell you that the best way forward is to pursue the investigation without having a conversation, interrogation with the potential suspect.
Yeah, because I mean, the potential for them to confess, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's very specific circumstances where like maybe you think you're not going to have enough evidence to arrest and that they're going to run and be able to run effectively. I mean, I guess maybe you wouldn't pull them in for questioning though and wait until you have enough to arrest.
I've never seen that. Never. I mean,
there has to be certain circumstances.
To our chat as we're talking through this. If you guys have examples of where another account where this has occurred and they actually knew the location of the potential suspect, they had them identified, and you know, they didn't pull them in at all. I would love to know about it because I haven't looked super in depth on this topic, but just from all my coverage and understanding and knowledge and experience, I can't recall any major case where this has happened. You know?
Yeah.
We aren't talking about somebody that, you know, shoplifted and they need to wait to get the cameras. We're talking about a quadruple homicide where they claim that they already had the phone data dumps beforehand. They claimed that they were looking for the most common white sedan on the market in the US. There, you know what I mean? So if you have an officer on the Pullman side say, hey, officers, we found the most common vehicle in all of America, a 4-door white sedan, okay? Why wouldn't you pull this man in? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
So this is in the PCA, and this is where apparently they first learn about Bryan Kohberger. This is the only thing that indicates from the PCA, from the cops, that this is when they found out about Bryan Kohberger. Is November 25th. An MPD asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for the white Hyundai Elantra. Okay. That's November 25th. They were on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra. November 29th at 12:28 a.m. Washington State University police officer Daniel Tingo queried white Elantras registered at WSU. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. This vehicle was registered to Bryan Kohberger. It says his address. Same day at approximately 12:58 a.m., so that's about 30 minutes later, Officer Curtis Whitman was looking for white Hyundai Elantras and located a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra at Kohberger's home, okay, the apartment complex. He also ran the car and it returned to Kohberger with a Washington tag. I reviewed Kohberger's Washington state driver's license information and photograph. This license indicates that Kohberger is a white male with a height of 6 foot and weighs 185 pounds. Additionally, in the picture, it shows he has bushy eyebrows. And yeah, it fits the description of what Dylan Mortensen described in her statement.
Yeah, I got you.
So this is like the only thing that they've ever stated puts him on the map as a suspect, because he is an owner of a car matching the kind of car they're looking for.
Right. And it just so happens to be, like I said, the most common car in all of the U.S. Not in that state, not in that city, in all of the U.S. A 4-door white sedan is the most common vehicle on the road today.
Don't you think it's a bit weird that Daniel Tiengo is looking for these white Elantras in the database at 12:28 a.m. on the same day that 30 minutes later, and it doesn't say that Tiengo like walked over to Curtis Whitman and was like, hey, can you go to this address and see if you can find this white Hyundai Elantra? And at no point in this says
and he lived in an apartment,
that he communicated with him to tell him to go look. But he looks it up, and then 30 minutes later, this officer is just looking for white Hyundai Elantras and finds it. It just doesn't make any sense.
Point, and I've never realized that before. So
why wouldn't they say at his door, like he told him, will you go check? And he went and checked. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems very singled out, especially if we're here to believe that there were over 20,000 vehicles within however long they said there was. And that's some of the benefit as to why it's important to look back on these documents, even when we're going through the pre-trial basis, because I do think, especially with what we heard on the at the hearing last week, to get a refresher on this PCA. You have Bill Thompson very clearly coming out and saying, hey, things aren't true in here. Things aren't true in here.
And Masouth, she also said things are not true in here, like flat out not true.
Yeah. So it feels targeted. Like the investigation feels targeted. So I can understand why someone would read that and they would say, you know what? They didn't get Bryan Kohberger from his car. They went looking for Bryan Kohberger's car. They went to go locate Bryan Kohberger's car, not just happen upon him from an average search result. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
It's weird. I don't know. Do you think this could be a made up narrative?
I don't. I am not one to be bought into this idea that anything in the PCA is just made up. I don't believe that. That would be so wrong. That would be such a gross injustice of any system in America.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, did they have sites on Kohberger earlier than this, but they don't want to say how that happened? They don't want to say how he was on the radar.
Yeah.
Because it could be through some means that are not exactly legal. There are some kind of loophole. And then they use this as the excuse of, this is how we located him and found out who he is.
I've wondered that from the beginning, and that's why we say in almost every video that we're talking Idaho for, and every video that we're talking Bryan Kohberger, and any video we're talking the Ann Taylor hearings, whatever, is that we are not here to try and prove Bryan Kohberger is innocent or guilty. That will come out with the evidence, you guys. We're here to make sure that there is a fair trial. We're here to make sure that whoever gets convicted, whether it's Bryan Kohberger or whether it's somebody else, we firmly believe that there is a madman who conducted a quadruple homicide off the streets. So when you're looking at this investigation, and there are the holes in this investigation that are in it, yeah, how can people not understand that there are massive questions out there? Even when you read that little tiny portion, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get it. I think that was a targeted search. I don't think that was a search that just happened to come upon a white Hyundai Elantra. I think they were specifically trying to locate that white Hyundai Elantra.
They could have found so many other white Hyundai Elantras.
Oh yeah, especially if their number is true, that it's over 20,000. What was it? 22?
It was 22.
22,000. Okay, so
I don't know if that's
22,000.
literally in the Pullman Moscow area, maybe like the state of Idaho, but
it has to be
in the Pullman Moscow area.
Why would they include an entire state? That would be wild. That's like saying, yeah, you guys, we have a suspect in Idaho state, and then give the total number of residents that are in the state. You know what I mean?
Yep. I'll be right back.
It's strange.
It's strange.
I agree. But so many people on that survey said that, Bryan Kohberger was interviewed and that he lawyered up. He was interviewed and that he lawyered up stopping the interview. Maybe I don't know. I know that if we are to believe that the FBI interview was conducted over the phone, then you would think that Moscow PD would have been able to conduct an interview also, right? In person or over the phone with his lawyer present. Regardless if he lawyered up, I'm assuming that they interviewed anyways. But, there is a benefit in painting an image of Bryan Kohberger and the case by saying that he lawyered up and was unwilling to talk. Because here's the thing. You can lawyer up and you can still have an interview. Both of those can be true. You're just there having the interview with your lawyer who is protecting your rights. So a lawyer wouldn't normally step in and be like, look, just don't talk to him. Just don't. Period. Don't talk to him at all. We'll just wait till we go to court. You'll have to sit in jail till we get there, but that's okay. That's okay. You can handle that, right? We'll wait till you get to court and then we'll handle it there. If a lawyer can clear it up with a conversation, I think that is the goal, right? That is the goal. I see a couple of people asking about the 22,000. I believe it came directly from Chief Fry's mouth when he was having an interview in what seemed like the police car parking area, because there were a whole bunch of police cars behind him. I don't remember the date of this interview, but I'm sure you could look up Chief Fry, Hyundai Elantra, and I believe that's where he says it's 22,000 vehicles, which is a wild number. That is a wild number. That's so many cars. I don't think there's 22,000 vehicles in that area. Well, maybe, I don't know, but not in Moscow at least. But I don't know. I'm just blown away by this. I'm blown away by this that because even if you look at it from the perspective of they didn't have enough to arrest him, or they were waiting on an arrest warrant. Well, that's not standard. That's not standard. What's standard is once somebody could be a potential suspect, to have a conversation with them. It's the opposite of what we would expect to see by them going out of their way not to talk to him, but follow him, I guess, because of the Indiana stops. I know those are still up in the air, but just as we're looking back on this topic right now, I'm just having a hard time swallowing that, I don't understand it. I don't get it. But hopefully we'll be able to have a lot of this explained in trial. Just earlier today, you guys, I was pulling up videos of one of the first hearings with Bill Thompson, and I pulled up the most recent hearing of Bill Thompson and listened to the comparison between his tone and his body language. And man, it is so different. So different. Literally, his stature is different. I mean, I didn't have a video of a front facing, but you can tell by where his shoulders are at. So I would love to hear if anybody else has any explanations of that. You can find that survey under the community tab on our YouTube. And for everyone else, we have quite a few people on here from the other platforms. The most chatting that's happening, I know we got some people on Twitch, we got some people on quite a few. Yeah, so 5 different ones. If you want to engage in the chat, you can find that on YouTube, and you can hop on YouTube and search us at Thought Riot Podcast, and you can join the chat there. For everybody else, whatever platform you're on, hit that thumbs up button, hit those stars, give us a rating, leave a comment under the video, and we appreciate that. But that poll, if you're interested, so you go on our YouTube and hit community here, right? Community, and you can find that poll right here, right after the Apple River case, which we're going to get into also. So on this poll, and I got to go to the restroom, but on this poll, we have, why do you believe they never interviewed Bryan Kohberger? 45% of people believe that they were doing something nefarious. Now, we got to be objectively upfront. I think because of how we've pursued the details of this investigation, a lot of our viewers tend to lean towards Bryan Kohberger's innocence, you know? And so that percentage makes sense. The next leading percentage is the evidence was too weak to risk him running. I'm kind of surprised at that one a little bit, just because if they believe it's Bryan Kohberger, if they believed it's Bryan Kohberger, and you see a guy that is going to school to be a doctor, that has traveled across the country, that has his own vehicle, phones, part of a community, I don't think the right thing to do is to assume he's going to run. You know what I mean? When judges keep someone locked up at risk of running, normally they have the financial means to run, or like private plane, whatever, some kind of connections to be able to run. And Bryan Kohberger being in school, I would be surprised if he has a bank account with, like, 50 grand sitting in it. I just don't see how they could look at his background and experience and be like, yeah, this guy's a runner, so we need to not alert him until we have enough evidence to get him.
Yeah, but when they feel like someone's a serial ender, they are careful usually to not let them know that they are onto them, for the simple fact that they usually, I mean, it's not so simple. They're worried what they may do, and it's not just running. It's possibly going and attacking more people.
Yeah,
a lot more people.
Look, okay, let's use the Rex Heuermann as an example. They left him out as they gathered evidence, but they had everything locked down. They were listening to all of his phones. They had backends to all of his computers. They had everything. They knew where he was every single second of every day for like the last, 8 months or whatever, while he was free. They had a lot. They didn't have that on Bryan Kohberger. Not if what the evidence in the PCA says is true. And what I mean by that is they wouldn't be depending on data dumps from cell towers if they had Bryan Kohberger as a suspect and had his a back end into his phone, a search warrant to track his phone, track and trace his phone. You know? It's an interesting idea. And what's weird is this is one of the topics in the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case that the more I think about it, the more I don't understand. I don't understand why this case was not handled like a standard homicide investigation with standard homicide suspects. I don't understand that. I'm shocked that they don't have a track and trace, have all his communications locked down, and let him travel across the US. It's strange.
It is really strange. So from what I'm seeing in the comments, it looks like Tara said that they didn't know about Kohberger until the IGG came back. And that's the reason no search warrants were done before December 19th. They worked backwards to form a linear timeline. But if that's the case, then it's really odd. The car info doesn't line up unless you're saying they just completely made that up. But I would think there's records kept of when a search is made in a database.
Yeah.
And I think they could double check that. And this isn't MPD. This is Washington, what, university police or just state police? I'm not sure.
No,
actually. I need to go back and look.
Something had to key them into Bryan Kohberger's car, you guys. And why that's true is because white four-door sedans, like I just said, you know, till I was blue in the face a second ago, white four-door sedans are the most common vehicle in the US, okay? So this statement where they ran a search on his car, got the identifying information, and then had an officer there within 30 minutes, that's a targeted search, you guys. So the only other option is that they had officers out randomly all over the place and one person just, you know, knuckle busting the keyboard and, hey, I got another white sedan. Frank, go check this out. Hey, I got another white sedan. John, go check this out. You know what I mean? Like that's not an effective search.
No, because there was nothing identifying about the car.
Right.
There's nothing identifying about it. And according to what we were given as the public, it didn't even fit the year.
If there was something identifying about it, they would have had him all right away.
At this time, it did not fit the year.
Yeah.
Of the year they were telling everybody to look for.
A lot of people.
So then why does it matter?
Yeah, right. A lot of people think that that he's guilty and that they caught his license plate on camera. But if that were the case, then they would have had him right away. Literally right away.
So, you know? They're saying that Tara said it would have been a tip. This whole car thing would have just been a tip that was sent in that they went back to look at later.
It absolutely could be. It absolutely could be.
It could be.
I'm just saying, without having a confirmation on any of this knowledge, we just have to assume in these situations. And I think that's to the detriment of this case.
I'd like to know then how many tips about cars they sent him. There had to be other people driving white Hyundai Elantras in the area that were men above 5'10" with bushy eyebrows.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Dylan's statement included his skin color and more details, because, I mean, according to the PCA, it didn't even include what race he was or color of hair or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, did he have a big nose?
Right. I that's one identifying mark that stands out on Bryan Kohberger that I'm shocked wasn't used to
His
identify him.
nose.
Is his nose
His nose
is bent, and you can tell it's been broken.
It's a big old crooked
nose. It's a big nose, bigger nose. And
it's
I don't mean that as like talking trash or anything, but that's an identifying marker, and it is it is like, you know, pretty much the center of your face. So
yep. But thanks for the input. You know, we appreciate it. It could very possibly be a tip. The
FBI
but
in our chat.
The FBI's in our chat?
Yeah.
Hi, FBI.
But yeah, I think this is a big deal. And this is one thing that I'm going to continue to look into, because, again, the crime scene wasn't managed effectively, okay? The investigation wasn't managed effectively from what we've seen. I haven't seen everything, just what we've looked into. I can't even give you a percentage on what that was. How they pursued Bryan Kohberger as a suspect is not standard. Nothing seems standard about this. Nothing.
So if it's exactly what Tara is saying, and that the FBI gave them the tip on the IGG, and then they worked everything backwards, and they found that tip about his car, and they found all these little things and built it up from there. I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that was it.
I don't think that's how it happened either. I don't
know why. It's just hard, like, for me to believe that's how it happened.
Listen, the reason why I don't believe that,
that's the narrative that the police put out there according to the court documents, though.
And you know, jokingly, right? If the FBI were in our chat, they would be able to confirm this, okay? But you know, a lot of people are using the FBI as like big brother in this case. Like, the FBI has unlimited potential and the ability to do whatever they want. Of course they had evidence on Bryan Kohberger and they handed it right over to Moscow PD. No, actually, the information that the FBI gets is the information that is out there to be gathered. Now, does that mean that the FBI doesn't have a tattered history and past with some agents? Sure, but with the amount of agents that was involved in this case doing the science, and I don't mean feet on the street, because I don't believe FBI was feet on the street doing the investigation. They were there more as a support piece. But with the amount of attention on this case, and with the amount of FBI agents working at the lab to process evidence and use their technology, I don't think we're looking at a case where you have a rogue FBI agent doing something absolutely bananas, like setting somebody up. I don't believe it.
Well, the reason I don't believe that that's how it happened is because I do believe that they were surveilling him on the way to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I do believe that. And in order for them to be surveilling him, he had to be a suspect somehow. And according to the narrative that Tara's talking about, that's laid out in documents, they didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. But it's been reported widely throughout mainstream media that they did surveil him across the country.
Yep. Yeah.
Widely.
I don't think there's any way they didn't surveil him as he went from the West Coast to the East Coast. No way. No way. They did.
Yeah, I don't know.
They definitely did. Now the details surrounding that, I'm interested. in the details that surround that, I'm interested again in how they got to that information. I think that matters.
Yeah, I think it
because
matters
there's
too.
this idea that people like to put across the table that, again, FBI is like Big Brother, and Big Brother just handed Bryan Kohberger to Moscow PD on a silver platter. You know?
And it's not, I don't just believe mainstream media. I believe that they surveilled him because he was pulled over twice in a row. And there is something where they caught him on cameras in various places. So yeah, I think he was being surveilled. And it's not just because of mainstream media reporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wherever we watched those body cam footages, and it was very obvious he wasn't following too close, like so painfully obvious that it's like, why else is he being pulled over? So that's just my personal belief based off of the evidence I'm looking at.
Just statistical probabilities. An out-of-towner being pulled over, when we see in the video footage that he wasn't doing what he was pulled over for. And not only was he pulled over twice in a row, he was let go without a ticket twice in a row.
And tons of people said, oh, that's a drug trafficking highway. You know, people get pulled over there all the time. No. I've driven that highway many, many, many times, like a lot of times.
Yeah.
And
like almost
never, not once, gotten pulled over on that highway. And let's just say I wasn't always the most careful driver.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a hard time believing that. And I've known lots of people who have driven that highway many times, and I've never heard anyone say, oh, you always get pulled over on that highway. It's the drug trafficking highway. You know what I mean? I've never heard anybody say that.
You know, everyone says every highway is the drug trafficking highway, which, let's be real here. Yeah, they all are. You know, the FBI has on their website a list of
any major highway,
the heaviest ports. They also have a list of the most active highways that deal with drug trafficking and things of that nature. But gosh, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Anyway, so while he stepped away, I wanted to mention, because I know you guys are all on here and we talked about the volleyball incident briefly earlier, and I couldn't really give a rundown of what it was. Essentially, which it's really interesting because here, I'll read this part. This is from the spokesman review, and it's entitled Idaho AD President warned about Chris Gonzalez alleged abuse in December of 2022, which is really interesting date, might I add. The parent of a University of Idaho volleyball team starter detailed how Vandals head coach Chris Gonzalez, I keep wanting to say Gonzalez, not Gonzalez, you guys, Gonzalez, had created an extremely negative culture and hostile environment in a 1,300-word letter to the Idaho athletic director, Terry Golick, in December of 2022. Father of the Idaho setter, Kate Doran, said he received only a generic response from Golick to the letter, in which the university president, C. Scott Green, was also copied on, and Gonzalez continued to bully and physically, verbally, and emotionally abuse Vandal players throughout the 2023 season. So this is, as we're all watching the Idaho 4 stuff, this I feel like was going under the radar for the most part. However, I had seen a couple people call attention to it, so I had watched a few of the media reports on this. Yeah, not talking about the Gonzalez family. My brain just keeps wanting to say it. So this is what he was accused of doing. He had an alleged pattern of abusive behavior that also included body shaming, depriving players of food, pressuring players to play or practice while hurt during the 2023 season. Horrible. He just sounded like a really abusive person, and I don't understand what was going on here. The interviews I saw of the young girls who spoke up against him, I mean, I felt really bad for them. They didn't know what to do. But it's really interesting that they CC'd basically Scott Green on this and nothing really happened. It was allowed to just continue. Him denying players food and body shaming them. And this was this started in this was written in the letter that the parent wrote was written in December 2022, and his abuse continued throughout 2023. Isn't that interesting that while we were all paying attention to the Idaho 4 case, this was going on at the school and nothing was happening about it, even though parents were talking about it and the players themselves of the volleyball team were talking about it?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I'll need to do some research.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up roughly.
Absolutely anything about it.
He was just mega abusive. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to look because I couldn't remember all the details of it, and I wanted to update on it. But that's it. That's the situation.
Interesting. So
we can dig more into it if anybody wants us to.
I want to go back to this statement about the car and that supposedly people said that he wasn't being followed. I just would like to ask anybody watching, right? And we get quite a few views out there, and this is for anybody in any country. Have you ever been pulled over 2 times in a row, back to back like that? Not only pulled over, asked the same few questions, and then let go both times?
With no ticket, not even a warning.
Yeah, nothing.
Like not a fix-it type ticket or whatever they call it, a warning ticket.
That's not even taking into account the fact that he wasn't following close. We looked at that footage.
He wasn't.
And we used that one gauge that tells you an estimate on how many feet when you're at a front end view. You have to guesstimate like the degree you're at. But he at all times was the 2 car lengths at least behind a truck. The whole time on that video he was, from the time that the cop's driving up, and then you see the cop like slow down and then pull over behind him, and he was 2 car lengths the entire time. So I'm not saying they were following him, but the probability that just randomly happens, like Bryan Kohberger would have to have the worst luck ever in the entire world to have something like that happen.
I agree.
It's interesting.
You know, a lot of people have said this numerous times, that Bryan Kohberger has the worst luck and is always getting pulled over. And in the PCA, actually, it mentions him being pulled over after it talks about identifying his car. It talks about like August 21st, he was detained as a part of a traffic stop that occurred in Moscow, Idaho by Corporal Duke. He was driving the white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the stop, it was recorded via body cam. He provided his phone number. Then his phone number was used to conduct an electronic database query that learned that his number was issued by AT&T. October 14th, he was detained as part of a traffic stop by a WSU police officer. November 18th, he was okay. So that I don't think that's a pullover, actually. So later, Steve, which does not require. Okay. Yeah. So many people have commented on that. Okay,
Yeah.
he got pulled over twice on the way to Pennsylvania, and here's what, two? Was it two more times? Two more times right here that he was pulled over. Why is he getting pulled over so much? Like, is he just the unluckiest guy in the world? Or the worst driver in the world? Or was he genuinely being surveilled? The way it's written in those Steve leaked Gonzalez texts, where he said that Bryan Kohberger was being surveilled by the FBI pre-crime.
Listen, I legitimately believe anything is possible, unfortunately. And why I say unfortunately is, if we had a solid investigation, if we had a judicial system that was functioning properly, if this whole crime scene investigation, prosecutor charges, court was being conducted effectively, we would have these answers. We would know, and we don't. We don't.
Yeah, we don't. I just...
And I don't think...
Him getting pulled over so much just kind of makes me wonder.
I don't think there's some grand conspiracy where you have an entire city that is out for this guy. I don't think realistically that is the most likely option, right? That would be very rare, okay? And that's what a lot of people out there think, that when you're questioning this investigation, you must be the person that believes the entire town are corrupt criminals and the entire town was out to get Kohberger. You know?
Like, was he already on the radar? And did they connect him to a crime because he was on the radar for something?
Could be. I don't know. I go back to, okay, so on the radar, how could somebody get on the radar? Okay.
I immediately go to dark web activity.
Dude, dark web activity is so hard that the only way that you're going to be able to, as a law enforcement officer, identify somebody on the dark web is if they literally give you their information or make a mistake that, like, if you know how to get on the dark web, then you should know enough in your technology to know how to make sure that nobody can find you.
You would think.
I don't suggest to anyone getting on the dark web ever. You need to be able to make sure that you know how to manage your routers, locator, and everything to make sure that you're truly anonymous on there. And our normal web can't function without the dark web. So, like, the dark web isn't there just for criminal activity. It's just an option that you can use to stay anonymous and raw coding and, like, yeah. But I don't know. Could he have been on the dark web? Could he have been part of something like Red Room-ish? I don't know. Maybe. Did he make a mistake and give up his personal information on the dark web? I don't know.
So what's another way somebody could be on the FBI's radar?
Being a part of drugs, and for some reason you are picking up corner-sized pickups, like personal usage pickups from a distributor, which that does happen. There are people who know people and their friend happens to be a big shot, so they go and they get it directly from.
Could it be Reddit communicating with certain types of people on like a platform like Reddit? Could Bryan Kohberger have communicated with somebody who was under FBI surveillance through something, through Reddit? And so they started surveilling him because he was having a conversation with them.
Yeah. I see some people saying that law enforcement can identify people in the dark web. That's only if you make a mistake. That's only if you make a mistake, you guys. If otherwise, you cannot. It does not function like the white web. It doesn't work like that. It is completely separate coding. A lot of people can't even log into it because they don't understand the coding of the operating system that's needed to function in the dark web, and using an onion router to be able to connect to, you know, I don't want to give the breakdown into any of that, but you know, we have some very young viewers that watch us, and my number one suggestion, just don't ever go on it. Don't ever go on it. It's there for people that help keep the www and .com world functioning, you know. But yeah, so an example of where law enforcement won in the dark web is, you know, I probably shouldn't even use the names. So there was a store out there, a criminal store, okay? And this criminal store was very well known. You could probably Google it, just dark web criminal store, and you would know what I'm talking about. It has the word rainbow in it. But you could go on there and buy anything, any substance. You could buy information. You can buy anything on there. So what law enforcement did, because they can't track people on there,
that store doesn't exist anymore.
That store doesn't exist anymore. But the law enforcement went on there and started making purchases. Okay. And because they couldn't track people on the dark web because it's not possible, what they started doing is exploiting the one area that they could, right? And that is pick up and drop off locations, or purchasing the way they were purchasing. If the person wasn't using a currency that was not trackable, traceable, like Bitcoin, then they could do some back end tracing on the currency payments, and they would also do orders and then get the person at the drop off. But yeah, I mean, I think law enforcement can make anything work, you guys. It's just different than what most people think of how the internet functions. I guess that's where I'm going with it. But could he have been involved in something like that? I don't know. Maybe one of his really, really, really good friends died.
Huh?
That one girl that died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about her?
A death can put you on the radar for law enforcement.
What?
What?
Put him on the radar?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of things that can come into play with that. What was the death from? Was the death from something not
an OD
mixed right? Was it because
I don't know,
the stuff was too strong and too dangerous to be out and people were dropping left and right? Did law enforcement think there was some kind of weirdness in that amount? I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with any random possibilities that could cause him to be on the radar. Can you come up with any others?
Yeah, him communicating with people online on Reddit. He did his little survey trying to talk to criminals. I think it could be possible he could end up on the radar somehow with the FBI. And the reason I bring this up, the reason I think it matters, is because he could have ended up on the radar and not done the crime. And tunnel vision could have happened. Or there could be a parallel investigation here, which is why they didn't bring him in for questioning, because they know way more about him than they're letting on. The FBI, if they were surveilling him ahead of time, that means they probably know a lot about him.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, because I want to keep talking about this. I think it's interesting,
if that
but
is
we just don't have confirmation.
We have no idea if that's true. And I don't think it leans guilt or innocence at all. I just wonder, I know what the survey was. I know that it was for school. That doesn't mean that he didn't get in contact with some people that he wanted to continue talking to, because he wanted to understand their psychology. That's what he cared about in his school. And maybe you can take things too far, be too fascinated, be too obsessed, and really begin talking to this person and digging too deep and end up on a radar.
Yeah,
and
I'm definitely on a radar.
All I'm saying is I think it's possible that something innocent, but also like something you're like obsessing about, could make you end up on some kind of radar and when something horrific happens near you, make you a possible suspect.
Yeah. And
because of the type of person you were talking to, or the type of activity, like what it looked like from the outside with your internet activity.
I just wonder if the drug angle, because listen, we're still coming out of the war on drugs, right? Like we haven't recovered from that insanity, you guys. The war on drugs was, in my opinion, just as bad and detrimental to the people of the US as a war, like a literal war was, in my opinion. And I think a lot of law enforcement officers out there feel the same. They feel like they're stuck in a position right now where they want the trust of the people. They don't know how to get it, though, because the people have been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to a point where the people don't trust the police. So both sides are just like, nah, no, stay over there, and then the police still have to do their jobs, and they're stuck where, like, the war on drugs did that. It is awful. And there are so many reports and books and details out there by law enforcement officers talking about just how bad this was.
Do you think the war on drugs led to what we're experiencing now in our country with drugs?
Yeah.
With the fentanyl crisis?
Yeah.
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 I think so too.
I think that it had something to do with that for sure. Yep. Because the more you listen, as long as human beings have been around, you guys, substances have been around. Okay. There are a lot of cultures out there that use it religiously, and that's fine. Listen, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to do anything. I think everything is fine as long as we're respecting each other, all people of the world, as long as we are being responsible and productive adults. I don't see anything wrong with it. But so when you have law enforcement coming out and saying, no, all of it's bad, you can't use none of it. I mean, this is the second time of prohibition. You know what I mean? We already went through this. We saw that it didn't work.
Yep.
So, could he have been on the radar because of that? Sure, I think so. I think if his background reigns true and Bryan Kohberger was a dope head and a and he had an eating disorder, that shows a pattern of potential, behaviors and
I'd use the
risk.
term dopehead, addict, if he was an addict.
Yeah, addict and an eating disorder. And again, I'm not saying that judgmental, you guys. I have nothing. We're just talking about potential facts, okay?
Oh, Suboxone is not creating addicts. I just want to say that Suboxone it literally treats addiction and is one of the safest drugs for treating addiction. I've seen it do incredible things for people.
But
there's it's pain pills originally that created all the addicts. It was big pharma scattering them out like candy, like morphine, claiming that it wasn't addictive, or no, it was oxy, sorry, claiming that oxy wasn't addictive, and give it to everybody, they won't get addicted to it, and then taking it away, and then people going to the streets. It's a lot of things. And in addition to that, it's the mental health of the country.
Yeah, but I just want to clarify, because any substance doesn't create addicts, you guys. So this statement of Suboxone creates addicts, that's not true. An addict is created because of personal trauma and things they went through in life and a lack of coping mechanisms. Substances don't create addicts. That's not how it works.
Yeah, that's why it's the mental health of the country, in addition to big pharma taking advantage of people. But those people would be
the highest success rate out of all the recovery drugs.
It does.
Methadone is the scary one that I think a lot of people get confused with Suboxone, whatever. But yeah, anyways, we can move on. I think any treatment is the fix. Okay, we did a video so long ago. Oh, is it Portugal? I always get it wrong. The country.
It is Portugal.
Okay. We did a video on Portugal like a long time ago, and they legalized all dope. And what their officers do when you get caught with it is they confiscate it. They give you a ticket. That ticket then brings you to court. That court issues you to a doctor. That doctor helps you learn about addiction and the downsides of that drug. And when it first happened, Portugal's use went up significantly, but after a 5-year time span and 10, they are the lowest amount of addicts and users in the world, period, the world. And they have it all legal. Woo. Wild. So interesting.
It is interesting because there's a transition period. It was really interesting looking at the research and how it showed this transition period of the use going up, and then everything just leveled out, and people realize oh, I'm not going to be in trouble. And it takes away the taboo-ness of it. It takes away the black market and the nature that it operates in our country. Really making everything illegal and cracking down on everything does is just create a booming underworld, booming. And the government profits off it.
Yep. And
we're not profiting off of it.
Yeah.
So who is? Just saying.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting for sure. And hopefully we'll continue to progress towards more positive solutions, because the most important people in that situation, the most important thing in that situation is the people. So it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. And I just hope that we have more focus on the people, But yeah, so going back to the original conversation here with the interrogation conversation, Do you have any other information or topics on it?
Wait, on what specifically?
What we originally started talking about?
Him being interrogated?
Yep.
No, I just think it's really odd. I mean, I don't know what else to add to it. There's just not a lot to know.
Yeah.
There just isn't much to know about it at all.
So I'm glad I took a picture of this. I meant to, because I knew we were going to be talking about this. So, and it's as one divided said in a comment that, not saying, I'll just read the whole thing. Not saying Bryan Kohberger is guilty or innocent. However, he came across someone's radar intentionally or accidentally. We need to know why the math isn't matching up. It appears like the case is unraveling at every hearing. The key equations in this case is the stalking, so the history, and the DNA. Now these elements are not paramount. During the stops on the way to Pennsylvania, it was alleged that these stops were for the reasons of checking for dope and wounds on Bryan Kohberger. However, neither were cited. Why didn't they back down at that point? In my opinion, the authorities were anticipating that Bryan Kohberger was connected with someone else and hoping that he would lead them to him. That's a good comment, huh? I liked that comment. That comment got me thinking because, yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of aspects to this that aren't matching up. And I don't know if Idaho has ever been put in a situation where they're being held accountable to being secretive, where they're being held accountable to their unwillingness to share what's going on in their judicial system or politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. Like, how can there be no connection to the victims? How can he not have looked any of them up on social media? How could he not have stalked one of the victims? Now, I did say this after the hearing immediately. I was like, thinking in my head, I was like, okay, he specifically said he didn't, it was false. He did not stalk one of the victims. That didn't happen. So are they going to say, well, technically he was stalking all of the victims, or technically he was stalking two of them, or technically he was just stalking the house? Like, is that what we're talking about here? Like, you know what I mean? But the reason, what trips me up with that is that Bill Thompson is arguing that is biased information because it's false, and that he's literally acting. Remember, you guys, his whole thing is he's protecting Bryan Kohberger against prejudicial information, right? The stalking thing makes you think, okay, so what's the point of even saying that's false if he did stalk anybody? Because all he cares about is if it's factual. Remember?
Right.
His issue was that it wasn't factual.
Yeah.
That's one of his biggest issues with it, besides all of those questions, period. Obviously, he had a question with any of it being said.
He was so concerned with it that he told everyone.
Concerned that it was false, that he told everybody it was false.
Yeah.
So it kind of, even though I think it is possible they will try to say he stalked the house, it makes me think, well, is what he's saying here that it's false he stalked anybody? Is that actually what he's saying here?
I wish I knew. Because
it's a little bit interesting. Like, why else make such a big deal of it if you're just later going to say, well, he stalked everybody, not just one, you know? So, I mean, that's why I'm like, maybe he didn't stalk anybody. Maybe that's what he's saying is false. But if that is the case, if you have no proof of stalking, if you have no proof of him contacting anybody or looking anybody up on social media, I'm so curious if they have anything on his Google searches or anything. if they have no connection, absolutely zero connection to the victims, how can they be trying this case?
I wish I knew.
They have to be able to prove he was there by other means, which, okay, then we go to the DNA. Well, anybody who knows anything about DNA, that DNA is standing on shaky ground, okay? That DNA is not solid at all. Okay, so then we go to the car. Well, they lost footage of the car, supposedly, if it even was the car. And from all accounts, just from what we're hearing, it just doesn't seem to be they have anything on camera that is directly implicating him. Like, that is his car. There is an identifying sticker or license plate. It sounds like the only identifying factor is that it doesn't have a front license plate. So what? So far, all we really have is the sheath with the DNA that's super sketchy. That's the only way they're placing him at the crime scene.
Yeah.
Like, definitively, other than he was out that night. And there's a car that kind of looks like his passing through the neighborhood. Because why did they not give us a more solid description of the car? Why is the car originally the wrong year? They gave us two different pictures, one with a sunroof, one without. Why? Why did they make it that generic? Why didn't they give us an actual picture from their footage of the car like any other case? It makes me think it's not very identifying, their footage. Isn't very identifying.
Yeah.
That people wouldn't even necessarily know exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's kind of odd to me. Like, where's the connection here? How are they going to prove this without a reasonable doubt when the jury's picked and this is going to trial? I'm just really curious how much they truly have. Like, what?
I'm curious too.
Is it literally just the DNA? Because I don't believe in that DNA. I would not bet my life on that DNA.
Yeah.
Is that why Bill Thompson wanted to protect the DNA so much? Is because he's like, no, that's my only thing. You can't take that away from me too. You know what I mean? That could be why we see Bill Thompson flailing in court and having breakdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, maybe that's because literally all he has that's really solid and isn't like totally circumstantial and super shaky, which I think the DNA could be classified as that. But I do understand that people, still give it weight.
Yeah.
Jurors are still going to give it weight.
For sure. For sure. And I agree with you. And I totally forgot what I was just going to say. What was it? It was some. I meant to say, because I made this statement a little bit earlier, and I'm gonna make it again. But I have no idea if Bryan Kohberger is innocent. I have no idea if Bryan Kohberger is guilty. You guys, I don't need him to be innocent, and I don't need him to be guilty. What I need is the evidence to tell me if he's innocent or guilty. And if the evidence comes out and the evidence says that he's guilty, listen, I have no buy-in here. I'm not somebody who believes in like there's a right and a wrong. I don't believe in that. So here at Thought Riot Podcast, it doesn't matter if we're right and it doesn't matter if we're wrong. That is absolutely 100% meaningless. Here we're just looking for information and trying to understand situations, and we're
a think tank. That's the whole point of the show.
Yep, we're think tanking, and absolutely. So if it comes out that he is guilty, awesome, that is great, and I will applaud the police
because they got the right guy.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's only a positive.
That is the positive. That is the positive.
Because if it's the other way around, we got big problems.
Huge problems. We have a potential fifth victim, and we have a mad homicidal maniac out there on the loose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think everyone understands what it means if he's not guilty.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, that's one of the issues with a high profile case like this is if he were to be acquitted, many people would not believe he is innocent. Like, for instance, OJ Simpson just died. Okay. The day he passed away, we were actually streaming and somebody mentioned it in the comments. And we had literally just brought up OJ. It was so weird how it happened like that. But, you know, Nancy Grace, of course, did a whole hit piece on him after he passed away. And I don't know how to feel about it because I do think he's guilty. But he has family who cares about him still regardless. So, and he's gone. So doing a hit piece on him isn't hurting him any. It's only hurting his family. So I just wouldn't do that. Yeah. I wouldn't do that. But the thing is he was acquitted and so many people believed he was still guilty. Casey Anthony acquitted. So many people believe that she's guilty, including myself. This is going to be another case like that. That if he is acquitted, you're going to have people like Nancy Grace who are going to be out there saying he is guilty and the justice system failed everybody involved. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there's not going to be any real closure. I think the cops are going to say that was our guy and he got away, and they're not going to investigate.
Yeah.
This case will never see justice if that's the case. So I really hope that they have all their ducks in a row.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I really appreciate the interview room for is they are really good, way better than I am, about always making sure whatever conversation they're talking about is focused on the victims. I love their stuff. I'm not saying like that's the only good thing about it. I absolutely love everything they do, even if their opinion is different than mine. The information and knowledge that I gain from them is incredible. But in this situation, it's really important to make sure that we're highlighting the victims in this case. And that's what it needs to be about, because look, it's interesting talking about theories. It is interesting talking about the possibilities in this case and situation. It's interesting. Anyone who tries saying it's not, well, maybe they don't like true crime. I don't know, but it's interesting. Okay. It holds my attention. It gets my brain thinking. It gets me wondering, and it makes me want to look deeper into these things. But the ultimate goal, regardless how interesting it is to get justice for not only the people who lost their lives, but the families who are now dealing with this too. You know, it's a horrible situation. I can't imagine what they're going through. But I just hope that at the end of this, they're going to be able to go to sleep knowing 100% that they have the right guy.
Yeah. And I mean, think about all the families involved in this case. Regardless of what happens, they're the ones still here dealing with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
The fallout of whatever happens in that courtroom.
Yeah. For anyone watching this, I suggest you check out our all the videos. We have the Idaho 4 playlist. Okay, we have the frat theory, the 4chan theory that has its own playlist, and then we have the Idaho 4 playlist here. And as you can see, I mean, we have a ton of videos, you guys, a ton. DNA manipulation, alibis, any Kopaka connections, frat boy, 113 pieces of evidence, officer questions. We've even talked about tunnels, subjectivity, objectivity, the connection between the character and behaviors of someone like Elliot Rodger and Papa Roger within, you know, this case. The car, we broke down the GPS in his car and how it's undeniable that there is none. All the background GPS application data is going to have to come from his phone, because it absolutely cannot come from his car. That car did not come with a GPS computer and chip in it. So I just suggest you guys check it out. It has a lot of really good videos and information in there, and I will link it in the chat right now. And we also have a Discord, you guys. And the Discord is completely free and will never cost money. And it's just a place to continue the conversation. I know I talk to a lot of people, like one-on-one conversations where we're digging into the case, and I'm probably talking to like 25 different people right now on a one-on-one conversation basis, that and we're just talking through the case and details and everything. And it's a really good time. It's a really good time. So check it out. There's the invite link. You can't join without the invite link. So if you downloaded Discord, you can't just search the Thought Riot Podcast Discord and hop in there. You actually have to have that link. So here, I will post it one more time. There we go. All right. And then any other closing statements on that Idaho 4 topic before we move into
yeah, the show's not over, guys.
No, the show is not over.
Sorry, I know Brennan started doing all that and people started thinking we were ending. We're not ending.
No. So we still got to get into Apple River, and we still got to get into Sebastian Rogers.
So what did you want to bring up with Apple River?
I just want to go through some more details about it. I've watched more video footage and I have more to say on it.
Okay.
And it's a really big topic. Let's go into Sebastian first, because I got to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Well, wasn't ready to do that, but okay.
Just give a brief rundown on what his case is.
So, if you guys haven't been following Sebastian's case, which he is the little guy with the glasses on in the picture right there up on the screen. When Brennan comes back, he'll put a big picture of him up there. But he is a 15-year-old autistic boy that went missing February, or at least was reported missing February 26th from his Hendersonville home, where his mom woke up that morning and went to get him ready for school at like 6 a.m. and he wasn't there. Last known from at least her perspective, the last known time she heard anything from him was about 10 p.m. at night, where there was a thud in his room. She told him to go to sleep and he said, okay. Well, there's been a lot of drama in this case. A lot of finger pointing at the mom, Katie Proudfoot, and her husband, Chris Proudfoot, and the biological father too. There's been people pointing fingers at him too, but less so, who is Seth Rogers. Seth Rogers did a recent interview, and I saw a couple interesting things. Like I heard him mention a couple interesting things. It's on a channel called Crime Lines and Lies. That's it. He randomly just called in. It looks like Seth literally just watches shows. Like anybody who mentions Sebastian, he'll just watch. And if they offer call-ins, he'll just call in. And that's what happened in that. And he mentioned some things about the home, like how they did nothing forensically to the home. at all. Not at all. And I was thinking about this. It sounds like all they did was, and I kind of have a theory on this case, okay? And I wanted to get a hold of Seth to tell him this, but I'll just say it on the platform and see, because I don't know how to get a hold of him. I could reach out to some creators or something. I'll just say it out here and put it out there as a theory, okay? And it's a theory that does not involve any parents' involvement. So in this interview, Seth mentioned, yeah, whoa, what are you doing? Okay. So anyway, he mentions that all they basically, I mean, the only thing I've heard that they officially did was they brought cadaver dogs and scent dogs in the home and around the home and sniffed around and all of that. And we've heard that there was a scent trail by Chris Proudfoot and other sources, that there was one going from the front door to this construction site where new homes are being built at a retention pond. And we also have audio saying that somebody found, with a dog, like they found footprints in like the mud. Well, then that came out and the police started saying that wasn't true. They never got a scent. You know, I heard Seth at one point say, well, they thought they had something and then they didn't. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is, because the police are saying one thing and the families are saying another. Seth has now said that, you know, he was wrong and that they didn't have a scent trail. Well, what if that changed for some reason? Like, what if the families were going out there and saying that? Like Chris Proudfoot was going out there and saying that without the permission of the police. And so the police just denied it because it is a serious lead in the case. What if it is? What if that is the only lead they have? And for whatever reason, they don't want that to be public. It's a part of the investigation they don't want to be public for whatever reason. And say it were true, that there truly was a scent trail by the home.
Yeah.
And that thud in the room was Sebastian getting ready to go outside. Like, what if this whole time,
anything's possible.
So from Seth's accounts, okay, they did nothing in the home really besides the scent dogs. Well, what if it wasn't a crime scene anyway, and there was nothing to be found, and that thud was Sebastian getting ready to leave, and he truly did walk outside, but maybe he planned to come back? What if he developed a habit of wandering at night? And the reason I started developing this theory was that interview, and then I randomly saw a short that said it had an autistic child, and the autistic child was playing in water, and it said, little known fact about autistic children, they love water. And then the next one like said, if they ever are missing, always check by water. And it had nothing to do with the Sebastian case. It was posted before the Sebastian case ever happened.
For all?
Well, of course not all, but there are common things.
Okay.
Yeah, there are common things among autistic children.
Okay.
So what if at night, because Seth claims, okay, that Katie didn't keep a good eye on Sebastian. So that could be her one downfall as a parent. Okay, all parents make mistakes. Maybe she just didn't keep a great eye on him. And she even said she stopped checking on him at night because, you know, he was a teenager at this point. And I understand checking on your teenager less. I think Seth sees it differently, partly because Sebastian isn't a 15-year-old in his head. He's younger, according to Seth, which makes sense to me why, you know, you would check still. But what if he was going out, sneaking out, rebelling in a way, and walking around at night? And this particular night, he walks. I mean, because from everything we've known, Chris is pretty strict. This could be his way of rebelling. going out, walking around at night. We already know he didn't sleep well at night. He would get up and snack. He was not a good sleeper. They were putting him on meds to help him sleep. So I think this is plausible that he was getting up and wandering around and maybe decided to start going outside. And that's how we know, that's how like he went out the front door and he was barefooted, and maybe he liked the retention pond. Maybe he liked going over there barefooted and, you know, putting his feet in it. He's a teenager.
Yeah.
I think it's plausible. He learned how to sneak out and started sneaking out and walking around.
Yeah. I agree.
And it was a warm day that day when this all happened.
Yeah.
So it just makes me wonder, like maybe this was a habit he was developing, sneaking out, walking around, and then somebody drives by and happens to see the kid and snatches him. He could have planned to come back the whole time.
If there are,
and if that's a construction site, I want to know, were there cameras?
Right,
Did this contractor put cameras everywhere? Because I mean, materials are expensive.
Yeah.
So I want to know, are there cameras in that area of that retention pond? Have they checked those cameras? If they're there. Yeah, and neighbors did say they found him hiding under a car once. I would like to know, what time of day was that? When did that happen? Has he ever snuck out before ever? I mean, they say he hadn't. I tend to believe that. But what if they don't know? They didn't have security cameras on their house. They wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Unless they checked on him. They weren't checking on him. They didn't have security cameras. They have no idea if he was going out and wandering around at night.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's totally possible. I think anything is possible. I really do. You know, and we have talked about this case a lot, and this new interview, I don't know if you mentioned it. I know we did right in the beginning, but it's interesting. It is definitely interesting. And I think that there's a very, very, very good possibility that nobody knows the exact story of what happened. I will tell you that, you know, we've pointed a lot of red flags at the stepfather and birth mother. That's because they have the most red flags in their direction. We talked about this the other night as well, where, you know, I can't help that. I can't choose what is a red flag and what isn't. They tend to have the majority of them just because some of their actions are opposite of what you would see standard, or in most cases. That doesn't make them wrong. That doesn't make them illegal. That doesn't make them anything other than a point to investigate further into.
And they could have those red flags because they are particularly strict parents. Maybe they have some toxic qualities.
Well, I mean, I'm more talking about the fact of them leaving the past.
Yeah, but here's the other thing that I was thinking about is, so there's a recent interview, okay? And I want to say the platform, I saw it on Facebook. I took a screenshot so I could know what news organization it was. It's On Patrol.
Okay.
And it's yeah, it says hashtag OP Nation. It's on Reels. I don't know. It's on Facebook. I don't understand all that. Well, the interview with Katie Proudfoot, really, I don't even know if there's a point in watching it because she doesn't give any additional information. It's very short and to the point. The only things that I think really stand out is clearly she has gone back to her home to do this interview. She's not in the camper. Chris isn't there with her, which is surprising. It's just her. She asked everybody to, you know, still keep looking for him and everything. Are you playing it?
No.
Okay.
No. I'll find it.
It's pretty short. I mean, you could pull it up on Facebook, no? I took a screenshot so you can look at what the the profile that posted it looks like or whatever. I think you could also do hashtag OP Nation because it looks like they. Yeah, there.
This?
Mm-hmm. That looks right. You need to look for their posts on Sebastian. It's on Reels. So is there a specific place you go on somebody's profile for that? Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's all good.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's literally like less than 2 minutes, right? Isn't it less than 2 minutes long? I think so.
Yeah, I
Why is
thought
your light on?
I don't know why my light's on. I thought Reels was on
Hey. Yeah, welcome.
Oh,
And we
here.
appreciate that. Welcome.
It's literally a Facebook account called Reels, I guess. I thought
it's
that
okay.
was an Instagram thing too, but
That's fine. We can.
I think I can find it now just by searching Reels Sebastian Rogers. I think it'll pop up.
Regardless, I do think anything is possible, and it's been really confusing between the differences in people thinking that TBI was leading the investigation, or that that the sheriff was leading the investigation. A lot of people didn't know one way or the other, so that's been a little confusing too. And like where I think that's been the most confusing is trying to understand aspects of you know, the polygraph was a huge red flag for him to back out of. There's nothing that's gonna make me feel like, oh yeah, that's just standard. It is what it is, you know.
So in this interview, she ends up saying that the police remain in contact with them. And remember, Chris Proudfoot said before that what?
It's fine. Just
he said that he's the only person, at least in that Narked Divers video, he said he was like the only person to be given a ride along, right? And there's been many rumors around the town. Why don't you just click on it?
I already have.
And it still won't work?
No. It's fine.
Anyway, he said he was the only one to have a ride along. There's been many rumors around town that he has connections to the police and he's in good with the police. Seth Rogers has claimed over and over that the police do not communicate with him.
Yeah.
That they don't talk to him, really. They don't communicate with him, which is interesting because in this interview, Katie Proudfoot says that she is in constant contact with the police, that they're always updating them. So it started to make me wonder, well, if they have really good rapport with the police, if the police are constantly updating them and talking to them about the case and letting them know where they're at, then do they know more than they're letting on? And have the police been guiding them in what to do? And did they say something like, look, Sebastian, I don't know. It's hard to believe the police would tell them that he's most likely not alive anymore. And that's why they left and felt comfortable leaving because of what's going on. They're getting threats. They're getting followed. And then on top of it, the police told them that he may not be around anymore. But then why wouldn't they tell Seth Rogers that? When he's out there literally working so hard to find his kid. So I don't know. I started wondering that. Like, do they know more than we realize? Is that why they went and stayed at the campground? Or were the threats literally that bad? Or are these just people that aren't used to the internet and really believe like somebody's about to walk up in their house and murder them or something? You know what I mean? Chris really could, they could not be involved, and Chris really still could be a jerk and been like, I'm going back to work, and she's terrified to be home alone.
I think it's important to look at that side of the argument, but I don't go that direction. Okay. I see quite a few people in here talking about, Seth's polygraph too. We did talk about that in length over the last 2 days.
I need to mention that.
And that's why we dug into how his medication that he said he was taking could have impacted the polygraph. And I don't want to dive into that again.
No, I do need to bring something up important about that. In the Crime Lines and Lies interview of Seth, he said he does not have a Facebook account. He said, if you get messages from me on or see anything from a Seth Rogers on Facebook or any other social media, he said, that is not me. I do not have social media. Well, what we shared on Twitter was somebody taking supposed screenshots of Seth Rogers saying he kept falling asleep in this polygraph and everything else. That isn't him. He doesn't have a Facebook account, according to him.
Yeah.
So somebody was coming out here and making up lies about his polygraph. So I don't trust anything. Okay. He said his polygraph was still being analyzed. I'm going to wait and see what Nancy Grace says about it, because so far everything we have been shown by the public has been people making stuff up.
Yeah.
To try to make him look bad. So I don't trust anything anymore until it comes from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. And that's all we've been saying the whole time is I have no idea what his what the results are, but it's interesting that he went and took it.
Yeah, I agree. That also discounts the whole TBI warned him too.
And yeah, but he said that TBI
that was in the Facebook.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
All of that is off the table now. If he doesn't have a Facebook account, all of that gets canceled out.
Sure. Absolutely. Yep. You're right. But so when it comes to
we got a super chat, by the way.
We did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it highlighted just like for a long time.
Oh, well, you didn't mention it.
Yeah, I said, hey.
Oh, hi, Amanda. I didn't hear you say that. Maybe I was just talking too much, but thank you very much. We missed you.
But yeah, when it comes to that, I mean, look, I still think the fact of being unwilling to take a polygraph is a huge deal. It's a red flag. It looks suspect. It looks problematic, and it looks like it needs more investigation into it. It doesn't mean that they are doing something illegal. It doesn't mean that they've done something illegal. It doesn't mean anything except for the fact of, okay, why wouldn't they take a polygraph?
Mm-hmm.
If I was in that situation, I absolutely would. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why some people wouldn't want to take one. I can completely understand that. But the thing is that gets me is that Chris agreed to take it and then backed out of it. If he was just the type of person that's like, look, I am never taking a polygraph because I don't believe they're reliable, and I'm not going to get caught up on saying I failed it when I don't even believe they're reliable. Okay. I can understand people doing that, not wanting to take one. So if he had denied it off the rip, it would have been and explained, like, I just don't trust them. I do not trust taking one, especially not with the police with a TV show. I'm not going to take one with a TV show. I could understand it.
Maybe.
Say, I'll take one with the police, but not a TV show. I would be like, okay, understandable, I guess. But him agreeing to it and then backing out of it, it's like, that doesn't look great. And then blaming it on the cops.
Yeah.
Oh, TBI told me I couldn't.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting for sure. Yeah. I think it's suspect. I think they have the largest amount of red flags, and 100%. So we'll see.
Yeah. We will see.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's all I really have to update on the Sebastian case. I mean, I don't have anything really additional to talk about besides those interviews. And I mean, you guys just, unfortunately, there's not a ton more out there. We just need to keep sharing his face, keep spreading the word about Sebastian so that hopefully somebody will see it, somebody will recognize him, and we can get some answers for his family.
Absolutely. And big shout out to Windchill for a super sticker. You are awesome and we appreciate you.
It's a pair looking in a mirror and it says thanks for being you.
Awesome.
Thank you. The pair is very cute. It reminds me of when Brendan talks about doing his sales pitch in the mirror.
Yeah. That is, it's a big deal. It's important to be able to do that for sure.
We appreciate it, Windchill.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving right along.
So what did you watch the interview, the police interview that I told you about with Nikolai Mew?
I did.
So we're moving into the Apple River stabbing case, which just concluded in court. He was found guilty of first-degree reckless homicide and also like attempted on the 4 others, and reckless endangerment and other things. But this man's going to be spending life, most likely, in prison for a situation where, you know, I was kind of thinking about this earlier today. I think that, and if you guys haven't seen the video, it's out there. We're not going to play it, but it's out there of what happened in this case, you know, where this man is swarmed by a bunch of people and, you know, he gets out a knife and he starts stabbing because he feels threatened. They were calling him a predator and all kinds of stuff. It's a long story.
They were calling him an R-wordist. They were calling him a
pedo.
Yeah.
Yep. Saying he was looking for little girls. He was really just looking
over and
over. He was just looking for a phone and his goggles, his snorkeling set.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible situation where everybody made terrible decisions. And it didn't have to end this way. Unfortunately, one young man died and others were severely injured. Well, I was thinking about it earlier today because we've touched on it a few times. Not really sure if we agree with the jury's decision, making him guilty of all these charges and him spending the rest of his life in jail. Well, and then I started kind of thinking, I kind of agree with the jury a little, though, because there's parts of it where I feel like he could have walked away. He could have done something different so that he didn't have to hurt people. And, you know, you were talking about taking the knife out and like threatening them with it basically instead of just going right for the kill basically.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it, and which this bit of information I'm going to say is going to just confuse me personally more on what I believe. But I was thinking, think about how easily that situation could have ended up with him dead.
Yeah.
Just looking at it from the flip side, I think his life could have genuinely been in danger, and I think he had every right to think it was. Being surrounded by that many young people, like 16, 17-year-olds who are wasted and calling you horrible names. horrible names, the worst names, okay, that there are in our society, and people coming over to the situation based off of what they're hearing said about you, and then just screaming at you. Because in that video, he clearly tried to talk to one of the girls and tell them like what was going on, and she was just too busy screaming at him and wouldn't listen. So the only time he tried to explain, nobody would listen to him. Yeah, mob mentality. Great. Exactly. It's that herd mentality. I absolutely think his life was genuinely in danger, and that this could have very, very easily resulted in him dying. Like, if you watch the video, you see parts where he's held underwater.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not really held underwater. That's
Well,
one
he
area
falls
that,
and then he's pushed down.
yeah,
more.
yeah. So the guy, yes, and the
he's
guy that you're
punched.
seeing on screen here, there's some very big questions about it. And the last time I
There
talked
are.
about it, it's being talked about quite a bit, you guys. And this is another one that we did a poll on our page. So when you look at our page under community, I think it's the second or third one down, but we have Apple River case. Nikolai Mew was found guilty of first-degree reckless homicide, a life sentence. Do you agree with the outcome? 43% of people said no. 18% said yes, 19% said I agree partially, and 17% said they don't know the case. I feel like you did a really good job about giving a rundown of the case. So it was in Wisconsin, right? It was,
Yeah, it was Wisconsin.
So yeah, in Western Wisconsin in the summer of 2022. He is 54 now, so 52 at the time. Ended up stabbing 4. One kid lost his life. But like we talked about the other night, and you did the walkthrough of the case, there it was all kids, and he was minding his own business, and the kids started straight up bullying him. And I want to talk about what the kids did separately from what Mew did, you guys. And what the kids did is totally unacceptable and not okay. They went out of their way to intentionally bully this man and make fun of him, and he is a very clear and distinct language barrier. He knows multiple languages. I think he said like 4 or something like that. But you can tell just from, hearing him talk once. I think he only said one thing in the entire encounter he had with the kids, but just that one thing, in my opinion, would make me like understand maybe there's not some kind of communication going on here. You have kids that are under 18 even with them that are drinking and are wasted, not a little drinking. I mean, wasted drinking. And this guy stabbed him and ended up killing one of them. And I don't think what the kids did was okay. I don't agree with it at all. I don't think that they should have gotten off scot-free. I just don't believe that's okay. I think that there should have been a more equal accountability of actions here. Overall, I really do, because I think there's a lot of people out there that relate with Nikolai Mew that might have been in a situation and position before where they've been targeted like he was. To say anything other than the fact that he was targeted, in my opinion, is wrong. He was targeted. And they gang bullied him, okay? All of them were like on top of him, yelling in his face, calling him names and everything.
Pushing him.
He got punched 3 times, or I'm sorry, he got punched once and slapped twice. Not okay. Not okay.
And when he tripped and fell, they pushed, like, he was down and they pushed him back into the water.
They did
So
push
he
him
wasn't
back
like
into the water.
held in the water, but pushed. He got choked.
Yep.
Someone literally put their hands around his neck.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I do think that there were times where he could have had his life feeling threatened. I don't think that that's impossible. I absolutely think that's a realistic possibility. Now, what's interesting though is he escalated it, and that's where his fault comes into play here. Okay. If he would have took his fists and started laying people out, because he has like 100 pounds on most of these people there, I would have sided with him in that situation. But he took out a deadly weapon and proceeded to not stab one person or two people or three people, but 4 people. Okay. I don't think that he was in control enough to understand how severely he did it based on the video that I've watched, but it's serious and it's severe. And it's disturbing to watch. It's disturbing to watch. And I think he should have got jail time. I do. I just don't agree with first degree. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it.
First degree reckless homicide, yeah.
Yeah,
it comes with a minimum of 40 years, which is life for him, in addition to all these other charges that he got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with him being there for the rest of his life. Though, yeah, and he did have a heart surgery before this too, which is a good thing to mention. His defense brought that up in like the little pillow he had to wear on his chest so that his dog wouldn't hurt his chest. And yeah, I think this very easily could have been him dead. That's why I felt like it was important, because I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about him being in that situation. What if he didn't have the knife? Would we be looking at a homicide of him? Is that the case we would be trying today?
I mean, I don't think so, but
you don't think he would have ended up dead?
No, I don't.
But do you think it is reasonable for him to think that's possible while he's in that situation, that he could be killed, that his life is in danger?
Maybe. It all depends on his past experiences and background.
Yeah, not what you personally feel, because I don't think you would think you're gonna die. But
yeah, it all depends on his background, what he's gone through, and what his life has been like, in my opinion. I don't know. I just know that where he escalated it to was not okay in my book, you guys. Look, and maybe even though I'm only 29, maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned with that, but like, if someone wants to throw fists, then you throw fists with them, okay? You don't need to pull out a knife. Like that's taking it to another level. I
don't know. I think some people could feel very threatened in that situation and feel like their life is at risk. Having that many people on you can be very scary.
Okay. So
very scary.
The only thing that makes me
and there have been plenty of people beaten to death by teenagers, okay?
I guess let me explain.
And they're in water on top of it.
I guess, you guys, I'm really calm in stressful situations. Like,
yeah, and really that's not typical.
All I have is my experience, though, okay? All I have is my experience. I mean, so all I can do is speak about life from my lenses, right? So I don't know what it feels like to be in that situation and be frozen or make really bad mistakes. I just don't know, you guys. And I'm not trying to say that to seem like I'm a tough guy or something like that. I think that it's not a good thing. I think that what's built in us is certain safety measures to help keep us safe and protected. And some people deal with that really good and do the things they need to do to get out of the situation. And some people don't do that. In his case, for whatever reason, he left and came back. He didn't need to come back. And he did it twice.
I know that is a big one for me too, that he left and he came back. He lied to the police. He evaded the whole thing. He threw the knife. Like, yeah, there's many things about the case where I'm like, it seems a bit sketchy. However, why was he charged with assaulting that girl when nobody had a clear recollection of it and it wasn't on video?
Because
there was reasonable
he's his
doubt
own
there.
worst enemy, though. He lied. And he lied a lot. Have you watched that yet? Have you watched the police interview yet?
I only got to see bits of it from the trial.
So he lied a lot the entire time. And he was very composed when the police was interviewing him. They were chopping it up, and the police officer, in my opinion, did a really good job making the conversation personal and related to him. She did a really good job. And so they were chopping it up and talking about it. And there are multiple times. One thing that I wish attorneys did in court, you guys, is pull out the areas of a conversation that can be proven to be manipulative, okay? And there's a couple of them in there. So he gives this story of what happened. He's pretending like nobody was stabbed. He claims that 2 of these boys had knives and were coming at him, and he ran away. That's his initial story, essentially. Once he pulls out a picture, oh my gosh, the terror on his face, okay? He's like, oh, a picture of me. And you can totally tell, like, it clicked, okay? And he even goes so far to ask the officer, do you have more photos of me? And she was like, I don't know what they have. I have no idea. I'm just the mediator between what they're finding out and you. And very manipulative in this situation. And, you know, clearly the prosecutor didn't feel like he needed to pull those pieces out of the trial. But in my opinion, I watched all the teens first, okay? And I already felt like the teens were full of it. Like, all of them lying. There is not a single story that is 2 of them. So every single eyewitness has a different account. One says he swung with a right jab. Another one says he swung with a left jab. Another one says that he swung a right uppercut. Another kid says that he pulled her hair back and was swinging from behind her. Like that, there is no 2 are the same. Okay? No. And
one says he was taking pictures.
Yeah.
Nobody else says that.
And then he gets up there after lying to the police officers and takes zero accountability. He doesn't even come off like a victim. He comes off like an aggressor, dude. Like,
so we got a comment, and while I kind of agree that him lying after has nothing to do with him what he was feeling in that moment when it all happened. I agree with that. I definitely agree. However, when you see the body cam footage of the interview footage, it's pretty, like, somebody lying that much about what happened isn't like a great indicator of his innocence and him feeling genuinely scared in that situation.
I'm even okay with lying. I would be okay if I seen someone lie, but once he lied, realized he wasn't, and was actively taking steps to correct his lie and adjust his story, and like, it was a lot, okay? And it raises a red flag that he knows he did something wrong.
Instead of just defending yourself.
I was scared for my life, and I had a knife on me from earlier, and I didn't think twice about it. I just pulled it out in fear for my life, and I can't even remember what happened. Like, dude, you probably wouldn't have got those charges if that was the case.
Yeah, because in that
honestly.
kind of situation, I think I would be the type of person who would actually not remember what happened. I would be blacked out, honestly, in that high intensity kind of situation. I would still be doing things, but I would be not remember after.
Yeah.
So I think I would be that type of person that would be like, I don't know what happened, but look, I was scared and I thought I was gonna die, so I did what I had to do.
Yeah.
I think, I just, him not being upfront, honest, is weird. It is definitely, it means something. It means something.
Yeah.
He didn't just do all of that lying for no reason.
And look,
he tried to act like he didn't
said,
even know what happened when he was in the back of the cop car. He tried to act like he didn't even know what happened.
Like I just said, for me, listen, everybody in the world lies, you guys. Everybody. If you're somebody out there and you think that there's just no lying should never happen. Look, we all lie. We do it intentionally, we do it unintentionally, we do it for protection, we do it for safety, we do it for everything. Okay, humans lie because our memories are flawed, and a lot of times we're trying to piece our own thoughts together while we're trying to recant a situation and a story. The intent, though, like, if he would have been arrested and he's afraid of the cops, okay, let's lean on his cultural background. I don't remember where he's from, but let's just say he says, I'm scared of cops where I come from. Our cops are known to do manipulative, horrible things, okay? So when I got arrested, I was not feeling safe with you either, so I lied. I lied through the whole thing. I lied about it all because I was worried that because I am from a different country, that all these charges were going to get slammed on me. Like, none of this coming clean ever happened. I personally don't believe once you lie, there's no coming back from that, because I believe everybody lies. Everybody does. What matters is getting honest, trying to fix the problems in this situation, showing remorse and empathy, and then having an understanding of the situation and what has been done. And none of those things happened. None. Zero. None of them happened. He never took accountability. He never showed empathy. He never came completely honest and clean.
No, he didn't. Now he did supposedly in the trial.
I mean, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. They talked about him lying, and he was saying he didn't remember, and but none of those was coming clean and giving an explanation of, okay, this is why it happened. This is why I lied. This is this. I didn't get any of that from him at all. I got more excuses, in my opinion. And it literally felt exactly the same as when he was in front of the officer, in my opinion.
I mean, that was one of the big issues I had in the trial, was that he never really explained that well, how he was feeling in that situation. Like, he just said scared. That's not a good description, and I'm wondering why his defense didn't help him learn some better descriptive words other than I'm scared. Like, because you know what I mean? That just isn't a great. I don't know. It just doesn't mean anything.
I don't understand it.
Like I'm afraid for my life.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to harm me because I just had a heart surgery. I would die. Like anything like that. I just don't understand why none of it was said.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like,
I am not.
And I understand the defense was asking all these leading questions, trying to get it out of him. It could be a situation where he's just a really bad communicator. I did see somebody say people miss he was a ticking time bomb. I I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
How he was a ticking time bomb. Do you think he was?
I mean, it's very subjective. I don't know. I have no idea. And why I'm saying that is because I personally don't feel like I have an accurate and true picture of his background and his trauma. So I don't know if he was a ticking time bomb. I have no idea, you guys. I'm not sure. I don't know. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you one way or the other, but I just don't know.
You know, I think this was a really unfortunate situation. And I absolutely believe that the teenagers in that situation did something very wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
They
absolutely
did something absolutely horrible, detestable, but not as consequential as murder.
Yep.
And because
That's
they
the big
were
thing there.
harmed so significantly, they weren't held accountable. And this is a small community. This isn't a big city. This is tiny town.
Yep. I think because they were harmed so seriously, they weren't held accountable. And I think because he lied, Nikolai Mew, so seriously, he was held accountable in that way. I truly think he dug his own hole. I really, really, really do. I think that if he would have been able to come out better, not like a salesman, but better at all in any way, to come out and say, I feared for my life. I had a knife on me and I didn't even realize I had it on me. By the time that I had pulled that knife out, I was already seeing red and blacked out and disconnected from the situation and feeling like my life was in jeopardy. I do not think he would have got these charges or charged in this way. I don't think so. He walked away twice. And listen, this whole situation is a failure on humanity. All humanity, everybody. Men involved, women involved, young kids involved, older people involved, everybody there. This is a failure on humanity for how everybody acted, in my opinion. And, you know, I take accountability for that as much as I think anyone else does. I don't know if it's our society. I don't know if it just so happened to be the right couple people to create a situation like this, but it's sad, okay? It's sad. 2 people lost their lives at least. This man lost the end of his life, and he has a wife that he cares for deeply and loves a lot, based on how concerned and worried he was in the police interview. So her life is impacted. All the people that got stabbed, their lives are impacted. The kid that lost his life and all of his family's impacted. I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot. A lot of people affected.
It's a lot. And it's all horrible. It's all horrible.
It absolutely is.
So, I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, if you were in the jury's position, do you feel like you have enough information now to know if you agree with the...
I don't agree with the whole situation. I'll put it that way. I don't agree with the whole situation. One, I don't think that I would have co-signed those charges. I would have held out if I was on that jury and requested lesser charges, because I know that's something a jury can do, is request to drop some and lesser charges. But dude, the kids have some accountability. Like, we can, the way I look at that situation is, when you have a child, and I'm talking young kid, okay, like young kid, and let's say there's a brother and sister, and the brother is picking on the sister, just nonstop, nagging, pulling her hair, pulling her clothes, everything, just irritating her. And the brother asks to stop, okay? Or the sister asks the brother, stop a million times. And finally she turns around and just whack, hits him. I think both people are wrong there. If you just get in trouble, the one kid that did the smacking, once they got fed up, then that other kid just continues with that horrible behavior,
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So I don't know. I don't agree with any of the situation, any of it.
I don't either at all.
Yeah.
But like in a situation where they have suffered such intense consequence of their actions to where, they lost a friend and, people were literally disemboweled, like what legal consequence should be added on to that? Like that's already so severe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like what would you add to that?
Yeah.
Like what? Just battery?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
Or should they even be charged considering the harm?
No, I absolutely think the kids should be. I do. I do.
Okay.
I think the kids should have some kind of charges, maybe not charges that actually put them behind jail or something like that, but charges enough that allow them to know that, hey, you're not a victim here only, right? You're not a victim only. Unfortunately, those scars are the accountability of bullying and targeting someone, and that is still a crime committed, because I don't think that's okay.
And what if
they assaulted him?
What if this is a man, Nikolai Mew, who had been bullied in a similar fashion with a group of bullies around him when he was a child, to the point of beating him up, jumping him?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the triggering, like how much that would trigger somebody.
I know it. Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible for sure.
It is horrible. But everybody has their opinions on this case. Like people are so split down the middle on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard one for me. It's really, really, really hard.
It's a tough one, yeah.
I don't know. It's just hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many wrong decisions on both sides, or all three sides.
I agree. All right, you guys. That is it for the True Crime Talk Show, brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast.
Thanks for being here with us tonight, you guys.
That's the wrong one. There we go. All right. Yes, thank you for being here with us tonight, everybody. Make sure you hop on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on all the social media platforms as well. We posted the Discord link in there. It is also in our comments section or description section in all of our videos. We have a Discord, and we have a Patreon, and we have a free tier on Patreon. So come hang out. Make sure you're getting those alerts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Turn on those notifications so you never miss an update on any of the most popular cases out right now. We don't have specific cases we're covering right now, except for the Idaho 4 is the main one that we dig into. And then we cover anything else that's hot. If you look on our page, we have so many cases. I mean, gosh, we've probably covered 200, maybe even 500 different cases by now. So come check our video section out. Here we go.
And good night, Strange Suspicion. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I didn't see Strange Suspicion on here, but hello, hello. And thank you for hanging out with us. All right, so I just posted that videos in there, and here is the Twitter. Have a good one. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here. You can follow those links. Those are posted on YouTube. For any of the, I don't know, we had a lot of people on here. Any of the other platforms, if you go to youtube.com and search Thought Riot Podcast, you can find all of our links in there. Actually, I think on most of those profiles, we actually have them in our description on there too. I need to log back into all of them and get in there. But anyways, thank you all for being here.
And have a great night. See you guys next time.
See you next time.